Agitorium nostrum in nomine Domini. Atheistic Communism. The encyclical is called what? What Pope? What year?
1937.
What Pope preceded Pius the 11th?
No, it's Benedict the 15th.
And what Pope succeeded Pius the 11th?
Pius the 12th.
Yes. All right, let's continue. We looked at paragraph 16. The messianism of materialism. This is the doctrine of communism. Its theory, its power, its results. Its power, read 15, paragraph 15, Michael, in the chart.
Here are grand promises, skillful.
And, that's an and symbol.
Here are grand promises and skillful exploitation of real ills of working class.
16.
Also of economic liberalisms, willful neglect of religion and morals.
And 2, diabolical propaganda. 17.
Then a satanic propaganda machine has all money, all media at its disposal.
Yeah, so this is really the synagogue of Satan, the Judeo-Masonic powers, the powers in the high places of darkness that St. Paul mentions. All right, 17, let's read through this. Shrewd and widespread propaganda. Flood the minds with whatever they want to fill them with. And spark emotions with slogans and buzz phrases. Right? Read on, please, Michael.
There is another explanation for the rapid diffusion of the communistic ideas now seeping into every nation, great and small, advanced and backwards, so that no corner of the earth is free from them. This explanation is to be found in a propaganda so truly diabolical that the world has perhaps never witnessed its like before.
Okay, that's a powerful sentence, isn't it? Diabolical propaganda. He uses that word from devilish, from hell, Luciferian propaganda. So obviously, such propaganda will not be provoking virtue and setting up heroic ideals and virtuous exploits, self-control, self-denial, love of Christ, but rather self-indulgence and ambition, lust, all these things. They'll thrive off of exploiting the fallen human passions. So read that sentence again.
This explanation is to be found in a propaganda so truly diabolical that the world has perhaps never witnessed its like before. It is directed from one common center. It is shrewdly adapted to the varying conditions of diverse peoples. It has at its disposal great financial resources.
I wonder where that's from. Great financial or immense funds. Now, where does the propaganda machine get all its funds?
U.S. Jews.
Not only the U.S. ones, but the synagogue of Satan and the one globalists, the billionaire globalists. It makes use of immense funds. Go on.
Gigantic organizations, international congresses, and countless trained workers. It makes use of pamphlets, reviews, of cinema, theater, and radio, of schools, and even universities. Little by little, it penetrates into all classes of the people, and even reaches the better-minded groups of the community, with the result that few are aware of the poison which increasingly pervades their minds and hearts.
Yeah, this is a very powerful paragraph right here. You know, how much of the American population do you think are just blindly follow the propaganda and drink it all in?
Most.
95%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could argue the advantage of internet right now, is that you still have some independent venues of news and points of view that is still permitted. So.
But I think even among the traditional Catholics, it's hard for people to. They don't want to go too far. They don't want to be kind of too radical. So they believe the world's a messed up place, but there are certain things they don't want to accept. How far we've come.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, the conservative Novice Ordo, or even traditional liberal outlets. Yeah. But anyway, so the poison is affecting everywhere. Notice the avenues of the poison: pamphlets, journals, cinema, which today would be movies. What else?
Netflix, TV shows.
What else?
YouTube. Podcasts.
Social media.
Oh, social media would be a big one.
Is Facebook part of this, or is Facebook just a personal thing, or is it?
No, Facebook, they talk about everything. There's politics on there, everything.
Okay, so Facebook would be part of the social media.
Oh, yes.
How does Facebook differ from Netflix?
Netflix is just a streaming service with TV shows and movies, whereas Facebook is interacting with like other people
Right.
online.
So they put all their information on there and so forth. And then the big government can read everything and know what everybody's up to.
Yeah.
It's the best surveillance.
It's willful of the people.
I know.
They're like,
It's wonderful surveillance.
They make their own profile.
Yeah, well, we know where this one stands. And yeah, Stalin would have been overjoyed to have people willingly giving their information. But that's really what it is, right? Eric Snowden was warning about this. Do you know who Eric Snowden was? See, you don't even know. That was about 10 or 12 years ago. Eric Snowden had to flee to Russia. An American fled to Russia because he was exposing, this is what the government's doing with all your social media.
Oh, okay, I know.
Eric Snowden.
Yes.
And he was all involved with that, and he revealed it and said, look, Americans got to know what's going on. Everything you put, everything you look at, everything you do on the internet or social media is all recorded by the Big Brother. They're watching everything you do. And he was warning, nothing's private.
And I think most politicians today will say he's a traitor. They won't defend what he did. They'll say he's a traitor.
Exactly. But Russia took him in, and he still speaks sometimes, I guess. He still puts out some stuff. But so the cinema and all the modern stuff, the theater, radio, in schools, of course, propaganda in the schools. And how did they trick the Catholic schools? Anybody? How did they get the Catholic schools to step in line and not be too radical? Don't be teaching, that there's only one true religion. Don't be teaching that there's the synagogue of Satan.
was it getting the sisters and the priests to stop teaching and putting lay people in?
Well, even before that. Right? One of the Maronist fathers in Australia, one of the good old men told me this over there. The head priest in charge, he had to make a big trip to Rome or something. And this was in the 50s. And he told them, whatever you do not let state interference. Don't accept state accreditation. Once you do, we're finished. And when he was gone, the one in charge did exactly that. Signed up for state accreditation because the state gives you grants, it gives you money, But you have to use their books, you have to use their syllabus of the education, their curriculum. And when he came back, he was so upset. And all he could say was, this is the downfall of our Catholic schools now. Now that the state has their claws in it, they're going to determine what's taught. So, seeking state accreditation is not the best thing. A lot of parents want state accreditation so that their kids can go through high school, go through the college, and have credits. That's what it means, credits, recognized by the state. But if you're not accredited, you don't get that recognition, so they have to kind of start all over. But there's a danger to seeking state accreditation. It is, they can determine what you teach and not teach, right? And if you can't teach the truth, you might as well shut the school down. That's why some of the society schools in Syracuse, and even the Dominican sisters up in Messina, they all went along with this forced immunization, forced vaccines. None of them rejected it. None of them condemned it. None of them acted against it. They all went right along with it. It's even the society schools. So you can't come to school unless you're immunized. So many parents pull their kids out. And what they should have done was just shut the schools down and reopen under a different name. Year-round summer camp. Big deal. Year-round, conscious awareness program. Whatever. They didn't have to comply with this. And they're going to pay the price of all the deaths, all the miscarriages, all the heart problems that is going to affect from all this. The state is clever. They are Freemasons and they are very clever. So if ever you run schools in the future, you don't step into the state accreditation. All right. What else? So theater, radio, schools, universities. Oh, poor children, poor kids. Universities can be so powerful if they teach the faith, taught truth, gave good formation. They could be powerful, and they used to be. You look at the beginnings of Villanova, Gonzaga, Notre Dame. All their origins were kind of like what we're doing right now. Just priests, congregation of priests, or one priest pulling together youth, teaching them, forming a school, bringing in sisters, bringing in more brothers, centered around Catholic life. And then it just grows and grows and grows. And they became great universities. Notre Dame was known for its great football. I think Tom Landry was one of the great coaches. He had the team there every day at Mass. Every day, the team had to be at Mass. And before every game, they had a rosary in the chapel. And that included non-Catholics. They had non-Catholics on the team, had to be there for the rosary. And they had a whole streak of winning. When you scratch some of the best coaches in history of athletics, some of the best coaches were Catholics. Because they have a sense of discipline, self-denial, working for the common good, etc., which is what the church teaches. So universities, in the hands of the enemies, it just corrupts the young. And now most universities and colleges are just seedbeds of vice, immorality, perversion, propaganda, and communists. Just horrible. Makes its way little by little into every order of society, even the most distinguished, injecting its poison into the hearts and minds in ways which escape notice. So many children, so many generations lost. Poor things. Yet, they still have free will, and they still have intellect and will. They can still save their soul if they pray. Even the most liberal and way out there individuals, they can still come back. And some do. God's grace does bring some of them back. You know, a woman, let's just take a woman who has had several abortions. I mean, that has to get to her. That has to affect her deeply. You know, they remember the day the baby would be born now, the baby would be 18 years old now. They think of these things, you know, right? And that must haunt them. So having that guilt and weight either has to drive them insane or drive them to confession. So you see how good and merciful God is, right? That he wants them not lost. Silence of the press. Ooh, silence of the press. Even worse, silence of bishops and popes and priests. Silence of the press. 18. Read the Bishop Williamson's chart. Gabriel?
Thirdly, the press is keeping on communism a conspiratorial silence.
Read on, Anthony. There is a third.
A third powerful factor in the diffusion of communism is the conspiracy of silence on the part of a large section of the non-Catholic press of the world. We say conspiracy because it is impossible otherwise to explain how press usually so eager to exploit even the little daily incidents of life has been able to remain silent for so long about the horrors perpetrated in Russia, in Mexico, and even in a great part of Spain. And that it should have relatively so little to say concerning a world organization as vast as Russian communism. This silence is due in part to short-sighted political policy and is favored by various occult forces which for a long time have been working for the overthrow of the Christian social order.
Okay, wow, that's a heavy-hitting paragraph. Heavy-hitting, because it's still going on. You never hear in the mainstream press of the slaughtering of Catholic people down in Nigeria and in Africa. That's going on right now by Muslims. Nothing. Silence. And then this guy came on, and I don't know how long he'll last on the YouTube, but he said there was a Western journalist. She was surrounded by the Israel police. She ran to her house over there, or her apartment, whatever it was. They surrounded the house, blew it up, left her in the rabble. People came to try to rescue her because she was still alive, and they would threaten them and shoot at them to stay away. So Israel wants to make sure people don't see what they're really up to. And just recently there's a photograph or video of one of the Israeli soldiers smashing a crucifix in the face, our divine Lord in the face, upside down. And you know, many Catholics throughout the world are up raising their voice against this. And they just get away with it. They get away with murder, genocide, shooting at children, women, killing non-military buildings like schools, hospitals, and nobody does anything. Nobody says anything. So, and Trump is all right behind it. And anybody who accuses Netanyahu, anyone who blames him, they get in trouble for being an anti-Semite. You see how ugly this picture is? But many are waking up. This is a good thing. Many Americans especially are waking up and realizing Israel is the most corrupt country in the world. Why are we supporting them? But here it is, silence of the press, Pope Pius XI. And then even worse is when the Catholic press spreads communism, which most of them now do, either explicitly or implicitly. And all do by their silence. So the only Catholic press you can really recommend now is Catholic Trumpet, the Recusant, and the catacombs. And maybe, with distinctions, Michael Metz, a remnant. But there you got to be careful because he's very trad-ecumenical when it comes to the Mass. He'll go to Mass at an Abbas Ordo. He'll go to Mass at an indult. He has no problem with that. Because maybe he doesn't see the depth of the problem. He should, because he does condemn Vatican II a lot, which is good in the new Mass, but but as far as Catholic press, EWTN, they're all fluffy. They show the new Mass, very conservative new Mass every day. And the priest will preach, nice stuff, saints' lives and virtues, and that's all fine, but you can't go long without mentioning the real truth of the heresies of Vatican II and the new Mass, the scandals of these popes, like Archbishop Lefebvre did, and also the political angle. The priests have to say the truth. Silence of the press, there it is. And the cooperation of many of the Catholic press with the communists. Sometimes they're paid off. We'll give you extra money if you just stop mentioning these things. A lot of them are. Or just threatened. Or at night, they come in and just sack the place and destroy it. Sad consequences, Russia and Mexico. So we're on paragraph 19. Go on.
Meanwhile, the sorry effects of this propaganda are before our eyes. Where communism has been able to assert its power, and here we are thinking with special affection of the people of Russia and Mexico, it has striven by every possible means, as its champions openly boast, to destroy Christian civilization and the Christian religion by banishing every remembrance of them from the hearts of men, especially of the young.
Okay, what's going on in Russia at this time, 1937? Who's in power? Joseph Stalin. He's starving out. It was 37, so 4 years before he had just starved up to 7 to 14 million people in Ukraine. He's got thousands, millions of Russian people, priests especially, professors, and people who can think, bishops are in the gulags. The press was silent. Silent. New York Times, silent. Right? And then in China, what was going on? Well, that's in the 50s, China will fall to communism. 40s and 50s. North Vietnam and North Korea. Mexico, what's going on there?
The second wave of the Cristero War.
Yeah, the great Cristero fighters. Father Pedro de Maldonado would be martyred this very year, 1937. The Freemasons surrounded him, tried to get the pyx out of his hand with the consecrated host. And he would never let his hand open. So they beat him, stepped on him, used their butts of their guns to bruise him. They dragged him up to a second-story building, a stone building, tied his arms behind his back, took his feet, tied them, hanged him outside the window, and swung his face with full power into the stone of the building. So his face was just bashed up against the rocks till his face was just mangled. Then they dragged him up and put him through that all again, and he kept just shouting, Viva Cristo Rey. And so there was blood all over the rocks of the wall. And then they took him in and they tried to crowbar his hand open. It wouldn't open. They beat him to death finally. He died. And even after his death, his hand would not open. So someone had to call the local bishop and say, look, come and get your priest and your whatever he's holding in his hand, the Holy Eucharist. So the bishop came, and as soon as he did, his hand opened, even in his death. So the next day, people were coming with handkerchiefs, see the Catholic piety, to collect blood from the wall, to collect blood as relics of a martyr, of a priest martyr, Father Peter de Maldonado. And so the Masons got all upset with this, so they took the hose and sprayed all the blood off. Next day, blood was on the wall again. People were coming to collect it. They sprayed it off again. Third day, the blood comes back. They decide then to smash the building down, which they did. So these Masons... That's why you never make a peace treaty with the Freemasons. This is what Bishop Follet doesn't understand. Archbishop Lefebvre understood it. You don't shake hands with modernists, he said. St. Peter's Society is doing the work of the devil, he said. Because they're shaking hands, they want to make deals with modernists, Freemasons, of which the Vatican is replete with. So you never make deals. The proof is in 1929, June 21st. The bishops told the Cristeros in Mexico, lay down your weapons in the town squares. There's a peace treaty now. And the Freemason says, yeah, we'll observe the peace treaty. No problem. Lay down your weapons. See, we did. So the Cristeros, they obeyed their bishops. And it was Pope Pius XI who said, do it. Go along with this agreement. And he was misinformed and made a huge mistake. So the Cristeros in all the town squares laid their weapons down. And then after the last one did, the Freemasons took up theirs and just blasted them. They killed more on that one day, June 21st, 1929, than in the 3 years of the war. Betrayed. And not only that, those miserable Catholic bishops gave the names of the leaders and all the families involved with the Cristeros to the government, the Freemasons. And for 3 years after, they were hunting them down, hanging them on telephone poles, torturing them, breaking into their homes, dragging out Cristero leaders and Cristero fighters. So that's why the second wave hit in 1937. They said, we had enough of this. We got to resist again. So God bless those good Catholic Mexicans who did fight and died martyrs. So this is what the Pope, he also wrote an encyclical, Divino, what's it called again? Afflictisque. Divino Afflictisque. He wrote 2 encyclicals about the persecution in Mexico, Pius XI, and praised the heroic martyrs, boys and girls going to death with a rosary in their hand and the cry, Viva Cristo Rey, on their lips, refusing blindfold and being shot, mostly boys and men. The girls were often hung. So this is what he's talking about. Communism and Freemasonry. Freemasonry and communism are sisters. So some say communism is one of the tentacles of Freemasonry. Go on.
Bishops and priests were exiled, condemned to forced labor, shot and done to death in inhumane fashion. Laymen suspected of defending their religion were vexed, persecuted, dragged off to trial, and thrown into prison. Yes,
so at least he's admitting this. The press wasn't at this time. The press was all silent. The only one speaking this was the Pope. And even he made a bad judgment. But at least he's proclaiming it here. And that's why at Vatican II they asked for the condemnation of communism, but they didn't do it. Spain, paragraph 20. So 19, the result, wherever communism gains control, all religion is eradicated. Its resulting horror. 20, all churches, convents, art, and civilization are furiously destroyed. And here's the example in Spain. Gabriel,
Even when the scourge of communism has not yet had time enough to exercise to the full its logical effect, as witness our beloved Spain, it has, alas, found compensation in the fiercer violence of its attack. Not only this or that church or isolated monastery was sacked, but as far as possible, every church and every monastery was destroyed. Every vestige of the Christian religion was eradicated, even though intimately linked with the rarest monuments of art and science. The fury of communism has not confined itself to the indiscriminate slaughter of bishops, of thousands of priests and religious of both sexes. It searches out above all those who have been devoting their lives to the welfare of the working classes and the poor. But the majority of its victims have been laymen of all conditions and classes. Even up to the present moment, masses of them are slain, almost daily, for no other offense than the fact that they are good Christians, or at least opposed to atheistic communism.
Right, so if they searched your house or car, they found a rosary, guess what happened?
Death.
Yeah,
Brutal death.
yes, they were just taken and shot. Thousands. I think up to 5,000 priests were shot and killed, and a good handful of bishops. Thank God, there were good bishops. A lot of them died martyrs in Spain, a lot of them, so that's a great thing. And then many thousands of lay Catholics. Go on.
And this fearful destruction has been carried out with a hatred and a savage barbarity one would not have believed possible in our age. No man of good sense, nor any statesman, conscious of his responsibility, can fail to shudder at the thought of what is happening today in Spain. Can fail to shudder at the thought that what is happening today in Spain may perhaps be repeated tomorrow in other civilized countries.
Yes, so they especially noticed the most Catholic countries were these most severely attacked. Spain and Mexico. They were the last Catholic countries. They were the last. But the devil's got smart. He doesn't want martyrs. He thought, oh, shoot, too many are going to heaven. Too many are dying for the man on the cross. We have to have another way. Let's rot them with comfort, ease, pleasure, enjoyment. Let's rot them with pornography, birth control, and just tweak the education. Say marriages don't last and they're not sacred. Push evolution. So now the devil has a win-win. He rots the West and gets most of hell. So it's a lot better program than when he tried with violence. Too many martyrs, you see? He's not dumb. He's not dumb. So, and you can see that will be the tactic of the Antichrist, right? They won't be able to buy or sell if they don't have the mark of the beast, which will be, it has to be linked into some worship of Satan. Some abandoning of the true religion and worshiping of the Antichrist. So if you don't do it, you don't get shot, you just can't buy food, can't have a bank account, can't fill your tank, basically can hardly live. So what do Catholics do in those times? Well, they have to trust in God and become inventive. Plant their gardens, get animals, go hunting, and between Catholics, try to organize, helping each other to survive. And no doubt there'll be priests at that time, maybe not far off, going from house to house, saying Mass. But it won't be so easy to escape disguise, to escape being caught. Because of all the drones, right? Drones, and they can tell by the Wi-Fi now who's where in the house. And I'm told something to do with the chemtrails. They fill the body so much with
Frequencies.
it's some kind of something gets in the system. I forgot what it is. Lead is not. I don't think it's lead, but it's some metal, maybe aluminum, and they can easily pick it up. So when the lead lights are going, they can even just look through the walls and see your form. So priests won't be able to hide in walls anymore, because they just use their magic wand and see that, oh, someone's behind the wall. But I do believe there will be miracles. I do believe God will help his little lambs by miracles in many cases. Not all maybe, but many. Meaning they won't detect you. They won't detect who's there. They won't notice, This happened in the life of St. Martin de Porres. There was I forget the exact story, but anyway, the criminal he committed some crime, I think it was. Police were chasing him. Or, I stand to be corrected on the story, but it went along like this. So the criminal ran to the monastery where St. Martin de Porres was. And St. Martin de Porres said, come on, let's go kneel and we'll pray before the Virgin Mary. So they knelt down and knelt before her praying. Right shortly after, the police came running through the monastery looking for this criminal. And they saw Martin de Porres praying there, but they didn't see the criminal. And they just kept running, left the place, and gave up the search. And St. Martin de Porres, he said, how did they not see me? Well, God protected you. But it was a chance for him to convert and change his life. So I think that kind of thing will probably happen. It will have to, because there's no way to escape these modern technology. But God will take care of his little lambs. He will. But he will. Okay. We're on 21. Bishop Williamson's chart. Its results of communism is the natural product. This is the natural and inevitable result of a deliberate and thorough revolt of the Antichrist against religion. A war against religion. No, the fruits to be expected from this system. Anthony?
Nor can it be said that these atrocities are a transitory phenomenon, the usual accompaniment of all great revolutions, the isolated excess common to every war. No, they are the natural fruit of a system which lacks all inner restraint. Some restraint is necessary for man, considered either as an individual or in society. Even the barbaric peoples had this inner check in the natural law written by God in the heart of every man. And where this natural law was held in higher esteem, ancient nations rose to a grandeur that still fascinates more than it should. Certain superficial students of human history. But tear the very idea of God from the hearts of men, and they are necessarily urged by their passions to the most atrocious barbarity.
Yes. Is this still going on?
Yeah. Yes.
What can be more barbaric than to have a nice, clean hospital room with smiling nurses and telling a young girl, okay, we're going to put you to sleep, lie down. I don't even know if they put them to sleep. I don't even know. And then they have bigger tubes, bigger knives, bigger thongs to yank a living baby in its 9th month out of the mother's womb. And in Israel, the government pays for it. Up to birth. They can kill the baby at birth. Supported by the government. So when you fall to that barbarity, God's patience just causes you to marvel. Paragraph 22, the war against religion. We'll pick up next time. Auditorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
How you walk away from 209? I said, how you walk away from 209, baby? You see it?